yesterday, someone left a comment saying, why aren't you guys on mainstream TV? And the answer to that is, we're perfectly happy where we are.
So for anyone watching or listening, can you describe who you are and what your content is about, and not just your content and your comedy and stuff like that?
All right. Well, my name is Jay Foreman. Hello. I am a comedian by trade, usually going around comedy clubs playing musical comedy on the guitar. But in what used to be my spare time and is now becoming more and more these days full time, I also make videos on YouTube. And these videos take the form of documentaries, usually about geography, infrastructure, cities, and so on. But they are made very much with a comedic bent. And we cram our episodes that are usually about things like infrastructure and trains and whatnot. We fill it with jokes. And it's a sort of a combination of comedy sketches and facts about tram lines and everything in between. Every time I'm given the job of trying to sell what I do on YouTube, it sounds dreadful, but that is what it is. That is a description of what my YouTube channel is all about.
I think it's difficult to describe your content, not just yours, anyone's content. Do you know who Robbie Knox is?
I don't know who Robbie Knox is.
He used to be a presenter of Soccer AM and now makes videos about him taking out the bins. And he said the exact thing. What am I supposed to say? But
well, isn't this the wonderful thing about YouTube, is that you can create stuff and it doesn't really have to sit into a specific discrete category. If you were making this for BBC One, you'd have to make sure that this was either definitely a comedy show or definitely something for the Open University. And why on earth would somebody want something that doesn't quite fit in? It's sort of in between. And the wonderful thing about YouTube is it can be anything. It can be the half one thing and the third of another thing and 15% something else, and it just doesn't matter.
I think the streaming services have started picking up on that, because I think you're similar to, in a way, like not content wise, but do you know who Jonathan Pye is?
Yes.
The fact
Tom Walker,
that
who goes under the name Jonathan Pye.
Yeah, but he's sort of, the fact that he does political stuff, but it's comedy and it's not one and it's not the other. And now Netflix do Big Mouth, which sort of is a sex education show, but sort of is comedy, and you're thinking.
I hadn't thought of that. We were watching Big Mouth yesterday. We're big fans of it in this house. It's such a weird show, and it's one of the most relaxing shows to watch because they don't seem to have any real rules. Actually, no, that's not true. It's very deceptive. Like, they got some very strict rules, but then there's a lot of things you have. Like, I've not described this very well, but in Big Mouth, the convention where there is an imaginary friend that only one character can see, they have approached it in such a different way that any show has done this, tired old cliche before, where the other characters sort of can see them. And the fact that it doesn't really matter and that changes from, episode to episode is brilliant. And it just makes it really funny. And it really keeps you on your toes while you're watching it.
The thing that I find wild about Big Mouth is that it should definitely be a show for children. Like, it's so good at promoting, like, you will get depressed. You will go to puberty and it will suck.
They've got these fantastic analogies for what depression, anxiety, puberty, like, they perfectly cast these emotions and traumatic events with animals and beasts. Like, anxiety feels like a mosquito, depression feels like a great big heavy purple cat. It's so clever. And I think there's some stuff in there that, really you could put it on and show it to your year 9 students, and they'd learn a thing or two that they really should have learned by then.
Or maybe they got it from you. Maybe they saw you changing up genres on the internet, and they thought, we can change up some genres there. I've got but you started YouTube 11 years ago. What were you first? Were you a comedian, or did the YouTube videos come first?
It was comedy first. YouTube was, for the longest time, just it was a hobby. And it was not something that I would ever consider to be a career or a way of making money. I think when we did our very first episode of Unfinished London, which was way back in 2009, which gets longer ago every year, that was not a career. That was back in the days when youtube.com was a video sharing website that made it easier for your friends and colleagues to watch video than by sending a great big attachment. There was no concept in those days of doing YouTube for a living. There wasn't even a concept of having a YouTube channel. It was just your private user login. And there really wasn't any such thing as, let's see what else this user has to offer. And that video, even though it's the same video that still sits on my channel now, for most of its life, it hasn't had a thumbnail and it didn't even have a very good title. It was called something completely different. And the thumbnail was just something that was automatically grabbed from the middle of the video, which was like halfway through a graphics transition. And, that was fine for years until slowly, gradually, and suddenly, YouTube became my career. And I had to go back through all my old videos, update the titles to make them more clickbaity, and update the thumbnails to make them more palatable. And very slowly but surely, YouTube has now become a sort of a job. But it was never a job for the longest time. It was a fun hobby, and more than a hobby, it was a show reel. So me and my friend Paul, who make Unfinished London together, he's like the other guy. He does half the writing and he does all of the behind the camera stuff. We were looking for jobs in proper telly. We were trying to impress TV companies and say to them, hey, look what we can do. If you employ us, we can demonstrate that we can operate cameras and we can write scripts and do a bit of presenting. It was just meant to be an audition for proper TV. But it was never our intention that that would become a means to an end itself. But 11 years later, that's what it's now become.
That's what I thought was wild. The fact that even 11 years ago, the first Unfinished London had so much research that went into it. An intro, which how many YouTube channels, how many YouTube shows in 2011 had a full graphic intro and stuff, especially just doing it as a hobby.
Well, I've had a lot of people say to me, wow, you back in 2009, you were so ahead of your time. And I don't think that's an accurate way of looking at it. The reason it looks ahead of its time is because we were trying to make a TV show. That's why we gave it an opening title sequence, a credit sequence at the end. And that's why, we had these shots where the camera's moving through the streets and I'm walking towards it like a proper documentary. And in order to do that in 2009, you had to hire equipment, and we hired proper cameras from a proper company with actual tapes inside. But we never imagined that in 11 years' time, people would be very easily making their own stuff from home, and that eventually everything on YouTube would look like that. We were just trying to make TV. And there's a comment that I get very often that really baffles me about my videos. They say, "Why on earth does this look like it was filmed way back in the mid 2010s? This looked like it comes from 2014. And my reaction to that is always, what the hell are you talking about? Like 2014 was 5 minutes ago. Nothing has changed since then, as far as I'm able to make out. So what's happened to the rest of either TV or YouTube that I've not noticed?
I think a lot. I think especially maybe, I don't know. I think because your content, because it's like TV, doesn't usually follow the way that YouTube goes. But YouTube back in 2014, you were allowed to swear, use people's music. Filthy Frank and iDubbbz puked in a cake and made millions of views off it. And since then, now you got to have 10-minute long videos. And I think a lot has changed since then.
Actually, that's fair. Yeah, because I've noticed that, even we've had to clean up our act, and we're making sure that all of our music is accounted for and there's no swearing and there's nothing that can get us chucked off or demonetized or in trouble. Because the bad side, the negative side of YouTube becoming a career is that you have to take it seriously with a capital S and a capital seriously, because you're not allowed to make mistakes. You're not allowed for a video, oh dear, that one didn't get me demonetized, never mind. And that's a pity. But I guess the trade-off is worth it, because being able to turn this into my job, especially when there's no comedy gigs around right now or for the foreseeable, I should be very grateful and very happy to just drop the swearing.
I think a lot of people have noticed that there's still a few channels that do it, but I think a lot of people have realized I can go to all this effort to put in, so that in 2014, if you put in a lot of effort into your videos, you'd get a lot of gain from it, because it's okay if you chopped up and used other people's music and you made like a TV show, because it did well. Whereas nowadays, I think a lot of people are seeing, well, I can just react to whatever's on Reddit, and I can be PewDiePie and have 120 million subscribers or whatever it is.
Yeah, there are a few things that are sort of the language of YouTube, and there's certain things that people just expect from videos that make, even now that I'm used to YouTube being a thing, they still make me cringe. So jump cuts, I can't stand them, and I hope never to do one. And I still when we're making our videos, we make a concerted effort to make sure that it looks more like TV than YouTube. And in the last series of Map Men, we've actually gone out of our way to make sure that our universe exists in about 1998. And we don't say episode, we say program. And, we make sure that every episode has a beginning and a middle and an end. And I'm hoping that we're able to stick to those principles, especially when it comes to the advertising, where we always make sure never to have a so-called smooth transition between the content and the advert. We want it to look like ITV in the early 90s, where the screen goes black and then the advert starts, and there's not the slightest link between them.
It'd be cool. You remember that little black bar in the top right?
Not only do I remember it, I use it. And my videos, in the top right corner of every episode of Unfinished London that has an advert, there is the little blinking black and white, they're called Q dots.
No.
And I put those in. I did put it in once for what I thought would be a funny little joke, just in case somebody notices it. But I had loads of people responding positively saying, oh, I remember those. So I now put them in every episode because it's both a little unnecessary nostalgia trip and it works as a genuine advert warning. So I use those, yeah.
I didn't even notice. I guess that shows the detail you put into your videos, right?
The detail and the panging for old-fashioned nostalgic stuff.
So when you did those, the first Unfinished London, and you were going to use it as a reel, did it ever go anywhere? Did you ever give it to any actual TV studios?
Well, we had a couple of what we thought in those days were very exciting emails from TV producers saying, hey, we like your stuff, come in and let's have a meeting. And so we went in. One time we actually went to none other than the BBC itself. We went for a meeting in Television Centre about a potential series based on Unfinished London. And, we were so excited about these meetings, but we learned rather quickly that, producers do this for a living. They have meetings with people over and over again. We weren't that special and nothing came of any of them. And it was depressing at the time, but what happened since then, the fact that YouTube is no longer a place for a show reel, it's a means to an end. And we now find ourselves in a position where, only yesterday someone left a comment saying, why aren't you guys on mainstream TV? And the answer to that is, we're perfectly happy where we are, because I've done a little bit of working in TV, and I know the difference between making a TV show for executives who are working for executives, and you have so many restrictions on what you're allowed to say and not say, and it has to be in a certain time slot, and it has to, you've got limited everything. On YouTube, when you're doing it yourself, you can take as much or as little time as you want over making it. You have all of the artistic freedom you could want, apart from obviously breaking the big rules. You get quite a lot of audience, and you get all the creative control you could want, and you also get instant feedback from the people that are watching you. I think we're perfectly happy where we are. Something that really sums up this new attitude to YouTube was a couple of years ago. There was a headline on the BBC website about a YouTuber has been, I think it was Joe Sugg, a YouTuber has been put on Strictly Come Dancing. And the headline said, this might be really good news for YouTubers who are now finally able to make their break into mainstream TV. And you know what? Young people reading that headline were thinking, why would they want to? What's TV, granddad? They read that and then they go off and, roll around in a big pile of money and viewers and creative control.
Exactly. I mean, I was having this conversation earlier, how on Strictly this year, there was a YouTuber, there was a podcaster, and that won I'm a Celebrity, and constantly now the YouTubers going on it, and they usually on their YouTube channel bring in a bigger following than the TV show they're going on. So, and especially why would you bother putting your content to an editor that then edits it for you, takes it out of the creative control, and then chances are, depending on the channel it goes on, you'll then pull in less views than you would if you put it on YouTube.
Exactly. I think TV is taking a very long time to catch up to how people consume their media now. And, the rules that they are still operating under applied to when there were only 4.5 channels. And you have to work really hard to make sure that what you make is all things to all people. And on the way people, I'm going to use both C words, the way they consume their content now is those models don't work anymore. And that's why audiences for TV is dwindling. And also people don't like TV much anymore. Like, people can tell the difference between something that is loved and something that is there to please executives, and so on.
Well, supposedly through doing my journalism degree and knowing journalists, we encounter people from lots of different places. Supposedly, part of the reason BBC Three went online is they wanted to use it as a sort of like Netflix other option, and then they just kept the old TV morals behind it. And BBC Three isn't doing well online at all, when in fact it could be doing great. But yeah,
I think the only, for now anyway, I think the only major advantage of being on so-called proper telly as opposed to YouTube is the prestige, the fact that it feels like it's something official. It's something that the nation watches rather than something that you watch furtively in the corner of the office. But I think that's going to change very quickly indeed. And there will soon be really no advantage to being on so-called proper telly over being on a platform like YouTube, where you can just make it yourself and have people watch.
I think
Also, the other difference is the budgets, but again, that's surely going to change as well.
and I think if you get hired by a TV show, then you are guaranteed a paycheck every month for the
That's
time
true,
you
yeah.
do that for. Whereas you can make the best video in your life tomorrow, and somebody could be playing some music in the background of it, and that's it. That's all your money that you were going to make on that video gone.
Oh yeah, that's something that keeps me awake at night, is that I'm sort of, because it's the only income stream I have is YouTube, and I have to make sure that I'm following all the rules as carefully as possible, because something that I could spend months on might suddenly get demonetized for an unpredictable reason, and then that's all gone. And there's actually, I've seen people offering services. You can actually buy insurance for this sort of thing. People who depend on income from YouTube and AdSense, you can actually buy insurance against that sort of thing happening.
That's
I
what
don't know if it's a good idea, but the fact that that service is available, it just goes to show how much people are depending on this, and just how badly it can go wrong.
it essentially, being a YouTuber, you are a freelance content creator.
Yeah.
So if there are workers unions for freelancers, eventually there was going to have to become some kind of union for YouTube content creators. So it's nice knowing that stuff like that is coming out, because I can only imagine if you rely on that income. I mean, I know what it's like being a freelancer. When I rely on income and it doesn't come, that's me terrified for however long that period comes in.
Yeah,
So
I think we know now more than ever how dangerous it can be to be self-employed in this current climate.
yeah, exactly. It's terrifying, isn't it? Um, okay, so your mother was a children's party entertainer, correct?
She was. How do you know this? Yes.
Uh, I do my research. How much do you think that had the effect on you wanting to be a bit of a creative?
Well, it was my mum that taught me how to play the guitar, and so basically that means this is ultimately all her fault. I ended up in my other career as a stand-up comedian doing lots of shows for children, and that's because the songs that I wrote, they tended to be, they often were child-friendly by accident. They weren't supposed to be for kids, but I happened to have a great big body of work that was okay to play at kids shows. And that gradually morphed into me doing more kids shows than grown-up shows, because I took my show on tour that was called Jay Foreman's Disgusting Songs for Revolting Children. And it's hard to believe, but I ended up following technically in my mother's footsteps as a children's entertainer.
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? Well, you're like a proper musician, aren't you? Like you've got perfect pitch. I mean, your timing's really good.
Oh,
You're
thank you.
well. I mean, I don't think anyone's seen that video where you sing one syllable at a time and manage not to be impressed by it.
Oh,
So
thank you very kindly.
you,
The
I
the
mean,
question people ask me when they ask about my other career as a musical comedian, and they go, "Oh, what came first? Was it the music or the comedy?" Because what I do on stage is sort of halfway between the two. In fact, when I started, it was closer to music than comedy, and then I gradually realized that I needed to do jokes between the songs, and I needed to sort of talk about myself a bit, and like gradually move my act closer to stand-up comedy than just playing folk music, because
when
the
you
songs had funny lyrics. But it
you
was
came,
music first for that strand of my career.
well, you came at the time when musical comedy was sort of at its peak, right? I mean, when was this? Like 2008. That time, Bill Bailey was big, Tim Minchin was big. A couple of years later, Bo Burnham came in. So
Yeah, that was peak time for some of my favorite musical acts were Flight of the Conchords, Tim Minchin, Bo Burnham, and they were all really big around that time. So they were big sort of influences then. Yeah.
Mm. And Bo Burnham came from YouTube as well.
He
So
did, yeah, but I didn't realize that until a long time afterwards, because my first exposure to Bo Burnham was at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and he was there playing the same years that I was, but he was playing way bigger venues because he was, he was fantastic. And then I found out years later, oh, did you know he started on YouTube? Oh, really? Wow. And of course, nowadays, I think loads of people, I think most people who end up, becoming good at performing, they started by putting out videos themselves. I think, I think 20 years ago, you had to be discovered. And nowadays, you can just let the world discover you with YouTube. That's very, very normal now. But there used to be a novelty. Did you know this person started not through the usual route, but they started on YouTube? My God, they did it themselves. Do you remember, like, as little as 10 years ago, it used to be quite an impressive thing to find out that an album was recorded in someone's bedroom. And nowadays, like, well, where else would you do it? That's where everybody does it.
do you remember when everyone was like, oh, did you know Justin Bieber came from YouTube? And now who doesn't come from YouTube when they get their start?
Exactly. I think that's what's changed. Like YouTube it's where everybody goes. That's the usual route into entertainment, isn't it?
Well, and as technology gets cheaper and you don't have to buy a £600 4-track and then learn how to edit using tape, you can buy yourself a Focusrite and chuck it through your Mac that you already own, that your nan got you for last Christmas. You can do music yourself. So
it'll be interesting to see what happens in 10 and 20 years from now. Like, we have to be very wary what sort of thing is going to come along and make YouTube redundant. And I wonder if the future is going to be very, 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 very short form videos, and whether there's going to be such an appetite for these very short, very quickly made things. And that's going to take up so much of viewers' time that things like YouTube will go the same way as big so-called proper TV. Who knows? It's very hard to predict.
I said that in my last interview, that I'm terrified that the way things are going to go are exactly like that. I find it very weird that the YouTube algorithm prioritizes longer videos when TikTok exists and Vine came before it, and they are tiny short videos.
So YouTube seem to find themselves in between TikTok and Netflix, where it's a sort of a strange hybrid between those two. And they've chosen 10 minutes. It's just gone down now to 8 minutes. And I think they want to rule. They want to be in charge of that type of content where I think it's quite a nice length of time to watch something, like, because I get bored after about 8 minutes, depending on what I'm watching. And I think even if TikTok becomes so enormous that everyone spends all their time watching those sorts of videos, I think there will always be a place for the sort of thing that YouTube is currently best at.
I think, do you ever really into magazines, stuff like that?
A very long time ago.
Well, so there's a common idea that magazine journalism is dead, and I am here to tell you it is not dead. But the way it works now is most people don't read magazines, but the people that do read magazines read really specific magazines. So I think content like yours will stay, but content that is less thought through will move with the times.
I think what's definitely disappearing from YouTube, like, you used to see a lot of people trying to start a YouTube channel that wasn't about anything in particular. I saw one guy sort of advertising his channel saying, we've got adventure, comedy, we've got some science, we've got some, whoa, hang on, who is interested in that? Like, who on earth is able to have a channel that's about all things to everybody? Like with YouTube, the more specific your channel is, the more you double down on something that's really, for want of a better word, geeky, the better it will do, the more people will like it.
That's the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, YouTubers are all geeks, me included. I make content. We are all uploading videos to an internet site. Even Jake Paul, who is a millionaire and lives this lavish lifestyle, is a geek. He put videos up on YouTube. So I think it's kind of cool that there's a platform for people like that. It's just interesting seeing the way it changes.
Well, while the model currently works and while we currently understand it, let's just carry on creating as much content as we can until it all implodes.
Exactly.
And then I'll have to get another job as a chartered quantity surveyor or a systems analyst.
I've heard you say that before. Was that what you were going to do?
That's my go-to. I don't know why I say that all the time. Actually, I have a song in my live act called "When I Grow Up, I Want to Be a Systems Analyst," And the song is specifically about, it's written from the point of view of a 10-year-old. It's specifically about the fact that I have no idea and refuse to learn what a systems analyst does. So I fall back on it as an example to give of a job that I know nothing about, that I'm not qualified to do.
So you were at York Uni, right?
I was.
When you were studying there, was that, what kind of stuff were you doing? Was it those terrifyingly intellectual subjects, or were you doing something more practical?
My degree was in French and linguistics, which I've used hardly at all in what's become my career. Apart from the last video has a little dollop of linguistics in. And then several videos ago, there was a bit of French. So technically, I've used my degree. But what I spent most of my time at York University doing was dabbling in the student societies like student radio, student TV, and student filmmaking. And those were where I learnt what would become essential skills for my job. But I didn't know it at the time. I was just having fun.
Yeah, I imagine spending time in the student union as well probably helped with with comedy and stuff.
Yeah, I did. So York Uni has lots of. I mean, it's a campus university, but it pretends to have colleges. And when they say college, what they really mean is like this particular section of the small campus. You know, let's give it a name and let's give it a bar. There were lots of bars in the campus. There were like 6 or 7 of them, and each one ran their own open mic night. And so I did them all. I did as many as I could because they were fun, and that's where I sort of honed my performing skills at these open mic nights. And
Yeah,
I was never paid for them. It wasn't about the money. It was about the dum 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 dum.
yeah. I was unfortunately cursed and blessed with going to a music uni. I had the easiest degree in the world, but I had no library. I had no student union. I had
Where
nothing.
was your uni?
I did BIM Brighton, which is a music uni in Brighton, and then I transferred this year to go to BIM Manchester to double up my contacts and be a smart kid. So yeah, that's what I do. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people these days, they do university and then end up doing something completely different anyway.
They do. I mean, it's so different now because I keep having to remind myself just how long ago university was. I still, in my head, it still feels like I've only just come tumbling out of university and uni was like a recent thing. And I think the reason for that is partly because I refuse to acknowledge that I'm getting so old now, but also because I have yet to find a proper job. Doing YouTube for a living still feels incredibly silly. Even if, because it's now the only income coming in, and I actually have to, when I fill in insurance forms, declare I am a YouTuber, which sounds ridiculous, it still doesn't feel like a proper job. And when my
Yeah.
grandma asks me what I do, I can't really say YouTuber.
Well, I saw an interview with you a year ago where you said that you still can't come to terms with the fact that you're a YouTuber. A year on from that interview, you're still no better at it. You're still struggling with the idea.
Well, I think the feeling of embarrassment, that will never go away. But I think what's probably changed in the last year is that perhaps I am better at it than I was because I'm having to spend more time on it, and I'm having to do a lot more of the admin that comes with being a YouTuber. So I've actually Mark Cooper Jones, who does Map Men, we've just recently started running a merchandise shop, and that's a full-time job in itself. And we have to spend our time replying to customers and sorting out stuff here and there, and it's the fact that it's now become very full-time, and the fact that I now have to, my to-do list doesn't span days anymore, it spans months. So that it makes me feel ever so slightly more professional. So that's changed. But what hasn't changed is the fact that it's just a silly word, YouTuber. What a stupid word.
You know what I've started doing with YouTube that makes me feel a little bit more intelligent? Doing all that search engine optimization, going through all those forum pages, working out all the boring key terms and stuff. That makes me feel a bit of tea just spilled on my laptop. Sorry. That makes me feel a little bit more like a hacker when I'm doing everything.
Are you sure you don't need to take a break to take a kitchen towel to your laptop?
No,
I'd hate for sparks to fly.
it was only a little bit of tea. We're good.
You're all right. Maybe
Yeah.
your laptop was thirsty.
Yeah.
Something else that's changed as well is that it used to be that whenever I'd send either a tweet or a YouTube community post, that I could just sort of send it without much thought and just send it willy-nilly and just sort of expunge whatever thoughts I had. But I sort of now I have to be more careful, and I have to make sure that I actually sort of choose my words very carefully, because I'm bound to get replies to whatever I send. And sometimes if I phrase something badly, it's going to come back to haunt me, and I've got to. I think that's a new difference that wasn't there maybe a year ago.
Yeah, especially Twitter. I mean, the past 3 years has been 3 years that seem to be full of cancel culture. So you've got to be
Oh, I know. In Twitter,
careful.
I don't worry too much about getting cancelled because, as far as I know, I don't have any opinions that are that dreadful. But I do remember when Twitter used to be more fun. It used to be puns, and it used to be people being nice to each other. And hashtags used to genuinely be where you'd go to find similar tweets about similar things. And now it's just a big shout fest.
It's horrible.
And it is, yeah.
I
And I
think
follow some very specific things. Like I've got columns for, and I don't know why I'm still following them, but there's so comedians I like and comedians I know, and then there's another category which is people talking about cycling infrastructure, because I was doing some research a couple of years ago for a video about cycling, and I've not stopped following these people, and that takes up a lot of my feed. And then there's also like some people that make music that I like. And you get into these habits and you start reading the same tweets from the same people over and over again. And then you realize that, hang on, these people on my phone, I don't actually have any interest in them outside of staring at my screen. I don't know why I'm following them anymore.
yeah.
But you can't unfollow them because that's quite an aggressive move.
Have you found yourself now ridiculously educated in so many different topics that are really specific? Are you just
No, I find myself ridiculously educated in only about one or two really specific things. So, like, because of the research that I've done for previous videos, and because I still follow people on Twitter that helped me with those things, I know rather a lot about cycling infrastructure and the borders of counties around Britain. But that's not very useful. Until those questions come up in a pub quiz, I
Hmm.
probably should take the plunge and stop following these people and find something more fun to be interested in.
I suppose if you become friends with members of the council and go down the pub with them, that might that might come in handy.
Oh,
And
that'd be loads of fun.
yeah,
Maybe I should get into sport.
yeah, maybe. Oh, I think we all think about getting into sport at some point. You do the classic IT crowd thing. Did you see that ludicrous display last night? I can't. Problem with Arsenal is they always walk it in. Just a couple of. Have you not seen that? Have you seen the IT
No,
crowd?
I haven't. But I'm imagining that's an episode where one of the characters pretends to be into sport and learns a couple of key phrases in order to fit in.
You've got it exactly on the nose.
We've,
There you
we've
go.
all done that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just ludicrous display, and it's great. It gets me through. I've worked in loads of pubs, and whenever the geezers come in, I can pretend like I actually know a thing or two when I'm chatting shit the whole time. So yeah,
Ludicrous display.
yeah, exactly. So do you count yourself more as a comedian or as a YouTuber?
I say the word comedian with more ease because comedian is a proper word that I think garners a tiny bit more respect, only because I'm very old fashioned and squeamish about this newfangled whippersnapper word YouTuber. However, if I'm realistic about what my time is spent doing, um, I think I'm a lot closer to YouTuber than comedian. And that's a lot to do with COVID because I was doing a lot more gigs in the first part of the year. But then who knows how it's going to continue? I think if YouTube carries on like it is, and if live comedy carries on like it is, yeah, I guess I'm going to be closer to YouTuber than comedian for the foreseeable.
Yeah,
Even if comedian is, to me at least, a slightly more respectable word.
I think you might have to get a little bit used to it. When this video comes out, it's going to be called Best YouTubers List. So yeah, prepare to see your name next to Best YouTuber.
Because best YouTuber, that sounds more attainable than
Yeah,
best comedian. Best comedian is, wow, people you've heard of. Best YouTuber. But look, I might be sounding very offensive and snobbish at my attitude to this word that only I seem to be saying is silly. There's a whole raft of people that watch YouTube all day long and they don't squeam. Is squeam a verb like that? Can you squirm? They don't squirm at the word YouTuber like I seem to be.
I think it was a very common mindset not so long ago. I think sort of since KSI has done that boxing match, his first boxing match, and people have started getting in the mainstream. I think people are sort of used to YouTubers, but do you know who Jax Films is, the YouTuber?
I've heard the name Jack's
One
Films.
of his first and biggest videos was about him at a Christmas family dinner, where everyone just kept on asking him, when are you going to get a proper job? And his response is, well, I'm getting paid for it. So I think that for a long time that was the common idea, but it's the same as gamers. Gamers were looked down upon until they started doing esports and gamers started becoming millionaires and started getting crazy huge deals to change over to other platforms. And now gamers aren't seen as nerds anymore. They're seen as people that are making probably more money in a day than
It's
you're
true.
making.
I think older people need to realize that playing computer games is not really, it's not a hobby. It's a thing that everybody does, in much the same way that you can't say, I like to watch TV for a hobby. Everybody watches TV. Well, that's not true anymore. Now they all play games now. It's such a normal thing. It's just like I can't think of a better way to phrase it, but it's the new TV. It's the industry is bigger than Hollywood.
Yep.
And you even get now, like The Guardian have just appointed a video games correspondent, and I can't remember who it was tweeting about it, saying, "Can you believe this is ridiculous? Video games, like, yeah, mate, it's important. It's what everyone's doing."
Yep, and video games that have storylines have been a thing since the 90s, like cutscenes and stuff. My nan, the other day, I bought The Last of Us 2, and she walked in the room while I was playing it, and she was like, "When are you going to start playing that game?" And I was like, "It is the game." And she was like, "No, that's a real person on the screen." So I think these old heads just must have the idea that video games are Tetris.
It is mad how good the graphics are now. But I mean, I don't play video games myself. I don't have a console. I've never had a console growing up, and the only games I play are sort of games on my phone that more or less resemble Tetris.
What is it you do in your free time? What are your hobbies?
Ooh, that's hard to answer when your hobby's your job. You know, like my favorite things are playing guitar, which I do on you know, for a living on stage, and making silly videos about geeky stuff like, you know, maps and stuff. Like my hobby is my job, which rather tragically means I don't really have any hobbies.
You don't
That's a
realize
terrible way to put
actually
it, but I
how
guess that means I'm living the dream.
you don't realize actually how good of a quote that was. My hobby is my
Was
job.
it?
That's going to be the headline. There we go. I noticed. Yeah, cool. So you put a ridiculous amount of effort into your videos. They're researched, they're fully edited, they are very impressive.
Oh,
Do you ever
thank
look
you.
at people like PewDiePie? I'm not saying I dislike PewDiePie, or they're other YouTubers, and you look at them and they react to Reddit, and you think I could do that.
Never. I mean, I see people who do you know, they do videos where they just sit at the end of their bed and talk about themselves. And they seem to spend more of the video saying, please like, share, and subscribe than they do actually doing, you know, the content you came for. And I can't see myself doing that. And I also can't see other people being interested in it. I think something I want to maintain on my channel that I think not a lot of YouTube channels do is I want there to be a bit of a mystery to who I actually am. And I want every single word I ever say on my channel to be tightly scripted, and so tightly scripted that I'm able to do things like shape-shifting and teleporting. And, you know, like, I don't want to bear much of my actual self, because I'm trying not to look like a YouTuber. I'm trying to look like a TV show. So I don't actually have any interest in bearing my soul and sitting at the end of my bed and talking about myself. I mean, this doesn't count because it's not on my own channel, but I don't want to do that sort of thing.
Yeah. I am glad that people like you exist, and that's sort of what this video series is about. Everyone that we cover writes a script, does something that is actually worth something. And the thing that annoys me the most is when you go to watch a video and they spend the first 3 minutes of the video just chatting crap. Like, whereas I like the fact that you get straight into the content.
Yeah, I sort of for the longest time I was sort of reluctant to ever say my own name on the screen, because like that's not what it's about. And like the reason that I bulk a bit when I have to tell people for insurance purposes that I am a YouTuber, the reason I don't like it is because that word implies someone who talks about themselves, someone who, you know, unboxes things and talks like a YouTuber. I don't like any of those things, and I want instead to sort of make TV shows. And it so happens that the only place I can put these TV shows to be watched and consumed is this video sharing website, youtube.com. But I have to insist, like, oh, I'm a YouTuber, but oh, no, I'm not a YouTuber, like that.
It's what it is when you're writing out the tax forms. YouTuber brackets. I'm a good one, I promise. Yeah.
I'm
So
a YouTuber who exists, who believes it's 1998.
yeah. So what do you think the future? Well, you're 11 years in your career now. What do you think the future of your YouTube channel goes? Where does it go from here on out?
Well, that's an excellent question, and it keeps me awake at night. That's why my medium-term plan is to carry on doing exactly what I'm doing for now while it's working. Um, I think the dream really would be to do exactly what I'm doing now, but with, bigger budgets and, more control and better quality videos, into my dotage. Just the reason that's hard to imagine is because YouTube as a platform is changing so fast. And there isn't yet such thing as a concept of someone who's been doing YouTube for decades. So what I'll be doing in my 40s and 50s, I have absolutely no idea. So I guess my best plan for now is keep making videos and just hope I've still got a career in 10 or 20 years' time.
Yeah, I suppose so. And I imagine even if it doesn't carry on through YouTube, it will go somewhere else. I tell you what my idea is for your content next. You need to make another politics unboring.
There have been a lot of people asking for that.
In
The thing
3
is,
years, Jay.
when we started making our series Politics Unboring, these were videos designed to go into schools. And the dream was that secondary school teachers would show this, to kids to teach them with a really positive bent about democracy. And I'm really pleased to find out that that did happen. However, there's a couple of problems with that now. I don't think we're all feeling as positive about our democracy as we used to. And also, I don't really have the stomach for it. Everything changes really fast in the world of politics now, and I don't feel as comfortable now as I did about 4 or 5 years ago saying, hey kids, get involved, democracy is great, vote for. And also, like, with a video like that, you kind of have to be neutral, and I'm finding it increasingly hard to be neutral because I've got these very strong opinions about Brexit and the Tories, and they don't belong on a YouTube channel that's trying to be nice. So I can't really do videos about politics and be nice at the same time.
Well,
If I was comfortable making videos that say what I really think of Brexit and the Tories, I might lose some subscribers.
yeah, I mean that's what I was going to say. I mean, it's the reason that it's been 3 years, because in the past 3 years politics has gotten so toxic, and you are worried about having a negative effect or getting negative feedback from it.
I tried very hard in the first series. So, well, me and the two people that I was writing it with, John Gracie and Liam Butler, like we've all got the same sort of political point of view, but we were trying, let's be on our best behavior and write something that is absolutely friendly for schools and neutral. And I think the situation we find ourselves in now, I actually now believe it's irresponsible to try and be that neutral. So I don't have the appetite for making politics unboring right now. I might do in the future, or I might call the lads up and we'll make some more. But for now, nah.
I think I put and the people I know that watch your content, we think that this is a good time, especially stuff like the wider the people in the comments say here. It's, you're not giving an opinion. You're not talking about a topic that has anything to do with a particular party. You are talking about the reasons thing exists, the reasons stuff exists. So
That's true. In that particular
like,
case, it was easier to be neutral maybe for that one. But then sometimes I'll make a video where it was supposed to be neutral and I still get comments saying, why are you betraying such a strong opinion on this? So for example, talking about the way the system works, and I have to report the truth that technically the Queen is in charge of everything and every law has to go through her. And I made what I thought was a perfectly reasonable point of, that's mad, isn't it? And then I've had people responding saying, you filthy Republican, you're such a bleeding heart lefty because you think it's a bit weird that the Queen has all power over everything. Like, who's got the energy anymore?
You can't please anyone. I get, on a daily basis, I get called a communist and outright right-wing terrible person, and you just,
well, hey, if you get called both, you might be doing something right.
well, I'm hoping I try to stay as central as humanly possible, but alas. And then if you say that you're central when you don't go either way, then people say that you can't make your mind up. So
yeah,
I was really hoping that there'd be an electoral college video coming from you, because I was like, what is the electoral college? And I knew you weren't going to talk about it because it was American. And I was like, but you know who I need right now to make a video telling me what that is? It was you.
Well, I mean, there's so much that we could do future episodes about politics about. The other reason it won't happen for a while is we're currently very busy working on the current series of Mapmen, which we perhaps ill-advisedly, because we were in a bit of a rush with the various other things going on in our lives, but we did 11 episodes in one go.
Wow.
So there's 9 more to come, and they're going to take us right up until September 2021. And by the time that latest one is uploaded, you'll be looking at footage of me and Mark that will be 1 year old. Um, so that's taking up our time, like sort of editing all of those. And there's going to be more Unfinished London after that because we've already half written the next episode, and we filmed those in batches as well. So by the time we've got any time available to make another Politics Unboring series, it's going to be 2022.
Yeah, and you're gonna have
Who
great.
knows what situation we'll be in by then?
Yeah, you'll there'll be one video of Map Men, and then the next one you'll be old and withered, and
I
that'll
think
be a big time gap.
if we manage to put out another video series and there not be a gap between the two, the jump in how much I age from one video to the next is going to be really noticeable.
Yeah, yeah. You're gonna have to use some of that de-aging technology just for a couple of episodes. That's what I was gonna say.
My videos are all set in 1998. I can just make sure it's uploaded in tiny little standard definition, and you won't see the wrinkles.
No, I guess that was the good thing about standard definition.
Yeah, it's very forgiving.
So there was a good. How long was it? I've got it in my notes here. Maybe I don't have it in my notes. Oh, 6 months. You had 6 months this year between your Map Men that was a month or two ago and the video before that. What were you doing for 6 months?
Partly sort of staying out of trouble because of lockdown, and partly working on Map Men. So the reason that this series is 11 episodes long is because we spent such a long time doing it. So the writing took a very long time, and it was done with Mark Cooper-Jones and me sat like we are now over Zoom, making notes, and then doing the scripts, and then doing the research in the holes in the scripts, and then planning how we're going to film it. And then when lockdown finally eased up a bit, we were able to actually get out of the house and go around to dozens of locations for all of the stuff for filming. It was making a 11 episode long series of Map Men. We worked out that it's the length of a feature film. By the time it's all been put out there, including all of the adverts that come at the end, the total running time of the new series of Map Men is about an hour and a half. So yeah, it's basically like making a film, and that's why it's taken so long. And the fact that we're doing it mostly just the two of us, and my partner Jade has been she's one of the team now, and she helps out with pretty much every stage, especially the filming. But that's it. That's our crew: me, Mark, and my wife. So that's why to make an hour and a half worth of content, it takes a really, really long time.
Do you think the pandemic affected the creation of your content at all, or would you
it
have,
did, because
there wasn't the pandemic?
Not for the pandemic, I think Mark and I would have had our meetings face to face in the same place. And it turns out, actually, I think we're discovering, like so many workplaces, we could have done this over Zoom ages ago. And it also means that we don't have anything distracting us. We've had all the time in the world to do all of this writing and all of this editing. I was very lucky, because when the first lockdown was announced, that happened to be the day after we finished all of the filming for Unfinished London. And I was able to just sit in the house doing nothing but editing all day long, because I had nowhere else to be. And I was able to get 2 episodes out in 2 months, having filmed it all just before lockdown. So yeah, lockdown's affected my timetable that way. And I also, were it not for lockdown, I'd still be on the road. I'd be going around playing my gigs. But they're not happening. So I'm spending more time on the editing and the writing and so on.
Am I right in thinking that you have dates booked for February?
I do currently, but who knows if they're going ahead, because I actually had some dates booked for gigs in November and December. And of course, they've all been bumped. They've either been cancelled or postponed. And I actually, my fiance and I were supposed to get married last year, and then that's been postponed about 3 times, and we don't know what's happening. So, everything, whether it's gigs or stuff in my personal life, you don't know what's happening because of COVID.
Exactly not. It's rough, isn't it? I mean, I know it's not the end of the world, but I bought Fall Out Boy tickets in June last year, and it's been pushed back to July next year. So I've never waited 2 years for a gig before.
Wow. And Fall Out Boy were looking forward to seeing you as well.
Yeah, they were hyped. Green Day got on the blower, and they were like, Mason, we can't wait to see you. It was, it's hard times.
I think that's one of the things. I'm very, very grateful that YouTube is a thing that I can do for a career, because I'm all too aware that there's a lot of my colleagues from comedy who they don't know what to do, because there are no gigs. And so, like, some of them are just having to sort of fall back on other office jobs they used to have, or I think many of them have had to move back in with their parents, because what on earth can you do if your career depends entirely on being able to perform to an audience full of people? And now there's no such thing as audiences anymore. Like, it's a lot of people are really screwed. And my fiance works as a stage manager for theatre. There's no theatres at the moment, so everyone is struggling along in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, there was theatre for a whole week until they chucked us into tier 3, chucked us into tier 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, theatres actually break my heart at the moment. That's all.
Well, let's try and look at the positives in this. Yes, we're going to be in tier 4 for a good few months, but the vaccine has started. The vaccine is rolling out, and one way or another, this will all eventually be over. And I don't know where I was going with that, but that's the end of the sentence. There we go. That's the only thing we have to look forward to, is that this will eventually, one way or another, it will be over, and everything is going to come bouncing back, except for the center of every single city in the world, because it now turns out we never needed to commute, and every skyscraper is going to be redundant, and we're fucked. Apart from that, everything's fine.
All right. So, do either of your parents believe in ghosts?
Oh, good question. I've never asked them. They've been my parents my whole life, and I've never asked them. I bet they don't. It's the sort of thing I bet they don't. Yeah.
Do you believe in ghosts?
I do not.
You don't?
No.
No, good.
I'm a bit of a job's worth when it comes to the supernatural. I have scant patience for people who believe in the supernatural.
Yeah. Yeah, I constantly have my friends say, "Oh, I saw a ghost dog run past my feet the other day," and I was like, "That didn't happen. That's just not true."
It's a mad coincidence that ghosts are always seen in areas where you can't quite trust your vision or your hearing. Like, what a mad. Anyway,
and
that's going to be
always
dull.
seen by people that believe in
the existence of ghosts is going to be very dull.
Yeah. If you were a shape, what kind of shape would you be? A smudge. If you were a smudge, what shape would you be?
If I was a smudge, what shape would it be? Do you remember, like, at the end of the Wonder Years, there would be a little vanity card at the end, and it would be someone drawing a squiggle going up a page. And I've got no idea what that squiggle was meant to be, but it looked like a sort of like a Christmas tree that was leaning too far to the left. I think I'd be that.
Great. Now I'm going to have to delve through Wonder Years, and
I hope it is the Wonder Years. I might be remembering it wrong.
Yeah, that was way before my time.
This is before vanity cards became like, US vanity cards are weird, aren't they? At the end of TV shows, when you have these weird little logos and phrases, and like, I don't know why they have them, and I don't know why we don't have them, but there's a whole podcast in there.
The stuff like at the end of TV shows where they say something stupid, and it's
like, I made this, or sit, boo boo, sit.
Yeah. So on. What is the point of that? Okay, what do you want for Christmas?
I don't really like things. I've got enough objects in my house. I don't really want more things. I am the worst person to buy Christmas presents for. This is true. My sister for Christmas last year got me. She made a little figurine out of pipe cleaners holding a $5. My Christmas present was a £5 note.
You got a $5. That's cute. Have you still got the little pipe cleaner person?
No. So I think there's two reasons I'm the worst person in the world to buy Christmas presents for. One of them is that I don't like anything, and the other one is that I'm not even going to bloody remember what you bought me the next year.
And you'll just throw it away anyway.
Yeah, I spent the £5. Can't remember.
Well, that's perfect. Thank you very much, buddy.
Thank you. Good to talk to you, and Merry Christmas.